Good day, I am Mark Andrew Abbott. I am going to present to you the research ID243 titled Life Cycle Assessment Based Approach in the Development of a Recirculation System for Secondhand Textbooks. This research was conducted by yours truly and my advisor, Marvin Noroña. So I'm just going to give you a little background of the textbooks or the secondhand textbooks setting in the Philippines. So in the Philippines, paper books are still produced and are preferred over ebooks. Secondhand textbooks are usually handed down or resold. Huge number of textbooks are being published annually, and it's inevitable to be discarded as waste. And in the setting of solid waste, 8.7% of paper and carbon wastes, in which books are classified into, contributes to the Philippines composition of solid waste. So this study was guided by the following research questions. First is a life cycle assessment based approach in the development of a sustainable system for the recirculation of secondhand textbooks possible to be implemented in the Philippines? And the second is, what are the drivers and benefits of such system? So the objectives of this study is to assess the current environmental sustainability practices of handling secondhand textbooks in the Philippines. Second is to determine the significant factors that will drive the recirculation of secondhand textbooks in the Philippines. And the third is to design a life cycle assessment or an LCA based system for the recirculation of secondhand textbooks in the Philippines. So the conceptual framework was developed in reference in these two theoretical frameworks. The first framework is the forward and reverse logistics model proposed by Flapper in 1996. The second framework is the life cycle assessment phase. So we both combined those theoretical framework, and these were studied and incorporated to form our conceptual framework in achieving the goal of this paper, which is to determine an LCA-based system for the recirculation of secondhand textbooks. So the next slide is the conceptual framework. The conduct of this study was guided by this conceptual framework, and the study will adopt the life cycle or assessment or LCA-based approach that will entail an understanding of the current system and practices of handling, storage, distribution of secondhand textbooks. The recirculation of which is the focal point of this research, with the end in view a sustainable system in the Philippine setting that will consider various stakeholders and the environmental concerns thereof. This study, basing from the conceptual framework, we can draw now our hypothesis. So in the null had two hypotheses. So the first null hypothesis is there is no significant relationship between the drivers of book recirculation and sustainability performance of textbook recirculation system. The second hypothesis, there is no significant relationship between the LCA-based practices and the sustainability performance of textbook recirculation system. So to be able to test the hypothesis, and the operational elements were identified to truly represent the drivers of book recirculation, LCA-based practices, and the sustainability performance for textbook recirculation system. In the operational elements, these variables are represented. So in the flow of methodology, the first thing that we'll do is we will conduct survey using SurveyMonkey. It's an online survey tool or CRM tool which is made available online. And the second is to assess the current environmental sustainability practices of handling secondhand textbooks. And third is to determine the significant factors that will drive recirculation of secondhand textbooks using one-way ANOVA. And the fourth is AHP, to assess the best collection method for secondhand textbooks. Fifth is to design or to develop a reverse logistics model for secondhand textbooks. The sixth is the LCA assessment, in which focused on the design of the recirculation model of secondhand textbooks. A life cycle assessment was used to analyze its effectiveness regarding the environmental impacts. So it will test the reverse logistics model, or the model that was created. So this methodology will answer the three objectives that was drafted for this study. So in answering the first objective, so it is observed that the highest preference for the 5 identified current environmental sustainability practices is by giving secondhand textbooks to others. So checking on that. And then for the second objective, using to determine the significant factors that will drive the recirculation of secondhand textbooks in the Philippines. So there are 5 out of 53 questions that have p-values about 0.05. These questions belong to cost minimization, solid waste prevention, utilization of space, and information exchange. These 5 factors were not considered in the analysis of the study. The answers of the respondents for these questions are not significantly related, thus it does not relate to the sustainability performance of textbook recirculation system. So in the next objective, to design a life cycle or LCA-based system for the recirculation of secondhand textbooks, AHP or analytic hierarchy process was used in identifying the best collection method for secondhand books. So in the collection stage, the disposal and acquisition of secondhand textbooks from friends, acquaintances, neighbors, and family is preferable compared to all the remaining alternatives. So the next step in our methodology is to design a life cycle assessment or LCA-based system for the recirculation of secondhand textbooks using reverse logistics. So here is the model for the recirculation of secondhand textbooks. So from the preferred collection method identified in AHP, the classification stage, the second stage, the collected secondhand textbooks will first be evaluated into 2 categories. The first category, to check the condition of the secondhand textbook. If it is good, then it will be proceeding with the recirculation. Otherwise, the secondhand textbooks will be subjected for recycling or disposal. After evaluating the condition of the secondhand textbook, the type of book, edition, and the value will be identified before disposition. So in the last stage, disposition, it involves the decision-making process on the classified secondhand textbooks. If the books were sorted at a good condition, then it will be processed for recirculation. Otherwise, it will be processed for recycling and or disposal. So the next step, or the last step, is to test that using the life cycle assessment. So here is the life cycle assessment model. So the processes considered in the life cycle assessment is the standard textbook process, the recirculation process for secondhand textbooks, which has a disposition of recirculation, the recirculation process for secondhand textbooks, which has disposition of disposal. The goal of this LCA is to create an awareness about the dominant aspects that determine the life cycle of secondhand textbooks. The information from this assessment will be used to focus the effort in the confirmation of the design of a recirculation model for secondhand textbooks in the Philippines. So here's the summary of the impact assessment result for all the processes. So after doing the life cycle assessment, the processes were analyzed, and the impact assessment tool was TRACI, which is tool for reduction and assessment of chemical and other environmental impacts. It can be concluded, or it can be seen, that in most impact category, the recirculation process for secondhand textbooks has the lowest values. This means that the design for the recirculation of secondhand textbooks in the Philippines, integrated with reverse logistics, is confirmed to be efficient considering the environmental and human health impacts. So we can draw our conclusion with this. So the expected outcome of this study was met with existing policies, especially the Philippine Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, which is Republic Act 9003, that needs to be strictly implemented, the support of the government and private sectors. This study of the LCA-based approach in development of a recirculation system for second-hand textbooks in the Philippines will have an impact impact to the ecological sustainability. So to answer the research question that was posed or guided or this study, so is a life cycle assessment based approach in the development of a sustainable system for the recirculation of second-hand textbooks possible to be implemented in the Philippines? Yes, it is possible to be implemented in the Philippines with the support of the government, students, librarian, teachers, parents, and other green organizations. What are the drivers and benefits of such a system? Space utilization. We can minimize the usable space consumed by second-hand textbooks. Cost minimization. Selling second-hand textbooks provides substantial monetary gain, while buying and receiving second-hand textbooks provide a cheaper alternative than purchasing a new one. Solid waste. By recirculation, the number of second-hand textbooks ending up in landfill, incinerated, and discarded as waste reduces. So I think that will be all for this presentation, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you.